G'day mates, it's the Doctor here, and welcome back to my Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Profile series, and if you're wondering why I've been putting this off for a while, it's because when we got Ghosts from the Past, well, as it was coming out, I was hoping we would get Decode Talker Heatsoul for the Code Talker deck as well as the Salamangreat deck, but that didn't happen, so I waited until Lightning Overdrive, and Decode Talker Heatsoul isn't going to be in that set either, and I was also hoping for the Dragunity Guizarm that was still missing for the Dragunity deck. We're still waiting on those few cards, but we are going to get the Paleozoic Link monster as well as the Drytron Xyz. I don't know how expensive that's going to be, but yeah, that's why I've been putting off these deck profiles, so let's get to it. Let's talk about Code Talkers, which is currently my strongest deck, and yeah, I should be having other deck profiles planned, like not just the ones like these guys, Drytron, Salamangreats, and Dragunities, but I'm going to be talking with my friend Sam to do deck profiles on his Subterrors as well as the Paleozoics. Almost blanked out there. I just mentioned the name, Paleozoics. So, let's talk about Code Talkers. So, here is Dotscaper, where if it's sent to the graveyard or if it's banished, you get to instantly special summon this card. So, it's an instant Link 2 monster. Then we have... maybe we shouldn't do it like that. We have Drytron Seacron, so this is like Salamangreat Baylinks, where you can banish it from the graveyard to protect your monsters in the extra monster zones. So, not as good, but it's still useful, and it's really easy to send it there. We have a Microcoder, as well as Code Generator, and Code Radiator, so the one thing these guys have in common is that you can link summon from a hand. There's also Code Exporter that Japan has, but we should be getting that in the same set as Decode Talker Heatsoul, whenever that will be. Because I think it's been 2 years that they've had those cards. I'm still waiting. So, I think Code Talkers are meta in Japan. So, that's why I just really want to test them out at full power. All in good times, as they say. So, what Microcoder does, like I said with the other two guys, is that it lets you link summon from the hand, as well as Code Exporter that we don't have, and you get to search for a Signet spell or trap. Like Signet Conflict, but I'll probably get to that when we get to the spells and traps. So, Code Generator is the Foolish Burial for the deck, where you can send Cyber Seacron to the graveyard, and voila, you have a way of protecting your monsters in the extra monster zone, or you can go with Dotscaper, so Dotscaper can revive itself, and you have another material for link summoning. Or you can just have Code Generator on the field, and if you do use it to link summon a Code Talker monster, then from the field you get to search for something like Microcoder. Then we have Code Radiator, and this card lets you target your opponent's monsters and negate their effects as well as dropping their attack to 0. And I remember using this on Dingirsu, what's the actual name of it? Orcus! How could I forget? And that player was like, what the heck is this? Never seen Code Radiator, and oh boy, did he feel it. Now we have Prohibited Snake, which is a hand trap for the deck, and what this card does is that if your Link monster battles an opponent's monster, you can ditch this card to the graveyard and bounce it back to your hand. Well, their hand. And what's also crazy is that this card lets you revive itself to your hand when your Link monster destroys an opponent's monster in battle, banish a card, add it back to the hand. So you can banish Dotscaper and revive Dotscaper. So running 2 Prohibited Snakes, like you can run 3, but I use a lot of disruptions in this deck. Then we have Backup Secretary, so just more Link materials. Then we have Cyber's Gadget. This card is an instant Link 3 monster, because if it's normal summon, you can target a level 2 or lower monster in the graveyard, special summon it, so you've got cards like Dotscaper and Microcoder, and really that's all you need, because you will be searching Microcoder a lot for a Signet Conflict. So running 3 copies of, cards are getting a bit stuck. Yeah, 3 copies of Cyber's Gadget, and when it's sent from field to the graveyard, Link material, battle, card effect, whatever, then you get a token. So that's also really good. Yeah, there's the third one, as I said. Now we have Lady Debug, and I'm so happy when Mirage Stalio got banned that they instantly put Lady Debug to 3. Because this was limited, but now it makes it fair for Code Talkers, or Generic Cyberse, or the other Cyberse decks like Marine Cess and Math Mechs of all things. And of course, Salmon Great. But yeah, do you guys think Mirage Stalio can come back? I think so too. Parallel Exceed, so if you link summon a monster, you can special summon this card to a zone the monster points to, and summon another from the deck, and you have more materials for link summoning. I should have mentioned that with these hand summoners, I don't know what you would call these guys, like what category would they be in? What's really good about them is that they can bypass Nibiru because you're link summoning from the hand. So instead of just summon one monster, special summon backup secretary, and Cyberse Gadget, you can summon 4 monsters and have a link 3, and yeah, be safe from Nibiru. So it's really good, but still gotta be a little careful, especially if you're going first. So I've got 3 copies of Cynet Mining, and what was I gonna say? Yes, all copies that I have of these were pulled from a set. So I didn't have to buy any singles online or trade any in person. And I remember one person asked me about the secret rare Cynet Mining I had. Did you sell an arm and a leg for that? Thankfully, no. Now we have Call by the Grave, which is one of the best spell cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! But I really think this card should be at 3 instead of frickin' Ash Blossom, because, well, it's just good against hand traps, or good against card effects that activate in the graveyard, or target a monster in your graveyard, like Monster Reborn, and you can make the card fizzle out. So it's just a really good card. And it's also not as ugly as Ash Blossom. We had 3 copies of Cynet Codec, and this card, along with Microcoder, was originally a game promo, but then not long after, they announced the reprints for these guys in Toon Chaos, and that just makes it really easy to get, as well as being really cheap then, because Microcoder was $40, if you can believe that. So, Cynet Codec, what does it do? If you summon a Code Talker monster, you get to special summon a... No, not special summon. I mean, add a Cyberse monster from deck to hand of the same attribute. The fact this card is not once per turn, unless it's like a Cyberse monster of the same attribute, like adding another Cyberse of the same attribute from deck to hand as a monster that you summon. So, example, if you summon 2 Code Talkers that are Earth attribute, you only get 1. But still, you can summon an Earth, Dark, Water, and just keep adding and adding. And it's insane. This card is really, really good for the deck. Because for a while, the problem with regular Code Talkers is that they just did not have the right amount of draw power. So I got Pot of Desires and Reckless Greed, but now we have this, Microcoder, Lady Debug, Cynet Mining, and now it's a coherent deck. Like, the deck is consistent and functional. Now we have Cynet Conflict. So this trap card is the one that you would likely to search off Microcoder, where all you need to control, or the only requirements you need, is a Code Talker monster on the field to activate this card, negate and banish an opponent's card effect. Or an opponent's card. And then they cannot activate cards or effects with that name until the end of the next turn. It's just a solemn judgment for the deck. Like, the requirements to activate this thing is non-existent, pretty much. And just massive disruption can literally tear your opponent apart. And there's nothing to be ashamed of about that. So Crackdown is a good way of stealing your opponent's monsters, again disrupting their strategies, stop them from link summoning, and, use your opponent's monsters that you steal off them as link material for your own. Now, we have the extra deck. So I have Link Disciple, and the reason I'm running this card is if you have something like Cyberse Gadget, then you just get a token off that, and, really easy. As well as Parallel Exceed to just summon a Cyberse monster on the field, then you get your 2 Parallel Exceed. Link Spider, in case your opponent gives you a token, or you just use a token from your Cyberse Gadget. And the reason I say about your opponent is because quite often I go up against my friend Gryken, who uses dinosaurs. But yeah, he does often give me more materials with the token, so thank you, Gryken. And it seems to cost him the match quite often. We have Secure Garden next up, and I just mainly use this card for Trigate Wizard. Like, very rarely would I need it for anything else, if I just want to get a Link monster out of the way. Flame Administrator, so giving all Cyberse monsters 200 extra. 800, not 200. Oh man. Trigate Wizard is a very good card. This was one of the first Link monsters that we got, and at the time it wasn't that good because to activate all 3 effects you need to have Link monsters co-linked to it, and starting out there wasn't that many Link monsters at the time. So now there's a lot more, and I think there is a way of building your Cyberse deck entirely around this card. So what are the 3 effects exactly? If 1 or more monsters are co-linked to this card, then any battle damage your opponent takes is doubled. Once a turn, if it's 2 or more, target a card on the field or banish it. And if it's 3 monsters co-linked to this card, you can negate activation and banish a card that your opponent would play. Oh man, it's been a while since I've done deck profiles, if you can tell. Alright, now for the Decode Talker monsters, we have Decode Talker Inverted. So if it's Link Summon, you can special summon a Cyberse from your hand, which isn't that good, but the fact it's light attribute means you get to add cards like Lady Debug or Backup Secretary. So that's why I had to get a copy, even though I think the effect is rubbish. It's that search power with Signet Codec that makes it worth it. Then we have Decode Talker, or regular Decode Talker as I like to call him. And I think Japan got this card really early. We didn't get this card till much later on in the Link era. But yes, if it's pointing to a monster, then it cannot be destroyed by battle card effect. So if you have 2 on the field, then it's almost like an indestructible board. Well, unless it's Kaijus and Nibiru shenanigans. Then we have Decode Talker, so being a wind attribute Cyberse, you get to search for something like Parallel Exceed, and you can also block your opponent's zones if they're using a deck that heavily relies on link summoning and co-linking and stuff. We have Power Decode Talker, so being a fire attribute means you can search for Salamangreat monsters if you want to combine this with Signet Codec in your Salamangreat deck. Also, you can target a monster on the field, negate its effects, and you contribute a monster when it battles an opponent's monster and double its attack to 4600. Shooting Decode Talker can do multiple attacks, which isn't a problem if you're using Code Radiator. And you also get to draw cards for each monster this card destroys. Decode Talker is probably the best of the Link 3 Code Talkers, because you get to revive a monster from your graveyard. Also, it gives itself and the co-links 500 attack, and they cannot be targeted by card effects. I loved using this card against Sky Strikers, because Sky Strikers were useless against it. And then we have Mekk-Knight Crusadia Aethermax, so to summon this monster you need 2 or more monsters special summoned from the extra deck. I made a mistake once that I summoned Secure Gardener and linked it with Decode Talker, but you can't do that because Secure Gardener says cannot be used as link material, which is sad. I did apologize to Gryken that I made that mistake, but this is a fantastic monster, and I don't know why it's Cyberse, but sure, take it. So if it's link summoned, or while it's link summoned, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects or attacks except this card. And if it battles a special summoned monster, which is more likely than not, then this card will gain the attack points. And if it leaves the field by an opponent's card, you can shuffle a card on the field into the deck. It doesn't target. And Again, more disruption. But now we've come to the best Code Talker monster of the deck, Access Code Talker. So what's funny is, when I first saw this card, I thought, it's good, but I can wait till the Megatins come out for 2021. However, when I pulled that card, Triple Tactical Talents, which you may have seen me do a video on that, I traded that card for this one. And boy, has this card won me so many duels. So, you can increase its attack to 5,300, you can just destroy your opponent's entire board, and they cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card. Not to mention, you can use cards like Microcoder and Code Generator to easily summon Access Code Talker. I don't know what they were thinking to just have this card say, to summon it, it requires 2+ effect monsters, so they're making it completely generic, and oh boy, maybe one day Access Code Talker will be too powerful and they'll ban it like Firewall Dragon! Oh man, but it's just insane. Talk about a boss card, am I right? And of course, it's Dark Attributes, so you can search for your Dark Attribute Cyberse off of Cynet Codec. But now I'm going to show you some other alternatives you can use. And you may have been counting that I only have 37 cards in that deck, but the last 3 you can just use any hand traps you want, like Infinity Impermanence, and I'm using Artifact Lancia. Actually, that's right. Oh, bugger, I realized the Infinity Impermanence are in there. They're supposed to be in the deck for the deck profile. Whoops. Well, I guess there's 35 cards in the deck, but you know what I would put in there anyway. So there's 5 cards that you can use in your Cyberse deck as hand traps and other disruptions. But here's some other alternatives, like Sim Tabler is basically Warrior returning alive. And I did check with rulings that for this card you have to... It's worded in such a weird way that reveal this card in your hand, target a Cyberse in your graveyard, then special summon this, then you add the target from your grave to your hand. But because it's already summoned to the field, even if your opponent calls by the grave, the monster in the graveyard, you still get the special summon, which is really good. Then Aron Claudia is another revival card. And when it's also destroyed, you get to special summon a Cyberse from your deck, which is weird how outdated that is. If it's destroyed, like, you're relying on this card to help you? Shouldn't you have a boss monster on the field already out by now? Degrade Buster is basically a quick play Chaos Sorcerer, even if it's only for 1 turn. But again, it can really help you from saving yourself from your opponent's really powerful boss monsters. So target a monster, banish it their turn, then just banish again. It returns, banish it again. So it can really keep your opponent off of their stronger boss monsters. And to summon it, you can banish 2 Cyberse monsters from the graveyard, such as Dotscaper, and you can special summon Dotscaper. And you can go for a Link 2 monster off that and other shenanigans. But lastly, I just want to show you guys these trap cards for if I may want to do a deck profile on a Trigate Wizard Turbo or something, where you just rely on special summoning your Code Talkers from the extra deck, and use cards like Recoded Alive, which I do believe with this card, I think someone once told me that the second effect can only be during your turn, but I don't think that's the case in reality. But yeah, there's also limited code, which can only be used once per duel anyway. However, Cynet Regression being a Cynet card means you can search this one off of Microcoder, and if you special summon a Link monster, so not necessarily a Link summon, but Monster Reborn, Transcode Talker, and of course with these 2 trap cards, you get to target a card on the field, destroy it, and also draw a card. But it is still unfortunate that before we got Cynet as a sub-archetype or something, Microcoder didn't exist when these cards were printed, and, you know, if they were Cynet cards, you would have been able to search them. and it would have been pretty good. But I am glad that this is a Cynet card, so you can search off of Microcoder in case you already have your Cynet conflict in hand. But, whew, what do you guys think of my Cynet or Cyberse deck? I'm really proud of how this deck has turned out, along with the Artifact Lanciers, as well as the Infinity Impermanence that is currently in the Dragooney deck. And yep, stick around if you want to see more deck profiles from me, like the Subterrors, the Dragoonities, and the Paleozoic. So the next few weeks is going to be pretty interesting. So until then, until next time, take care, mates.